Whiskey 7 Charlie Sierra Alpha.
The Whiskey 7 station, try your call sign again.
Yeah, Whiskey 7 Charlie Sierra Alpha, Whiskey 7 Charlie Sierra Alpha.
Roger, Roger, Whiskey 7 Charlie Sierra Alpha. This is Jim, Juliet, Indy Mike, Kilo Charlie 9 Victor, Kilo Victor. Where might you be and what's your name?
Yeah, name here is Robert. I'm located in Gastonia, North Carolina, and that is exactly 20 miles due west of Charlotte.
Roger, Roger, Robert. What's your radio?
Yeah, I have a Yaesu 3000 with a PR 789.
Well, Robert, the conditions are not good this morning. You dropped down from being able to copy you down into my noise level. Try it one more time, please.
Yeah, I'm running a Yaesu 3000 FPVX 3000 with a Hall PR 781 to a 40-meter dipole at about 30 feet and running no amp, just 100 watts.
Roger. Yeah, you were about 3 dB at that time above my noise level, so it was working pretty good. Let me check something here. Audio check 1 2 3 4 5. Audio check 1 2 3 4 5. Yeah, 1 2 3 4 5. Anyway, just I need a coffee break, I think. Come back, Robert, and tell me about your antenna system.
Yeah, the antenna is just a homebrew dipole. It's a 40-meter dipole, resonant dipole, and yeah, that's pretty much it, just on 40 meters. I've got an 80-meter dipole, and then I also have a MFJ cobweb antenna, and that does 20 meters down to 10, and that's all the bands I'm running now. Don't have a real estate for 160 meter antenna, but yeah, pretty much I'm doing things from 80 all the way to 440 here.
Roger, Roger, Robert. Last transmission was 3 dB above my noise level. Yeah, that is usually the deciding factor. If you're a dedicated ham operator, space is usually the problem that you have as far as getting your 2,000-foot rhombic antenna going. So, but we all have to do within the confines of what we have to operate on. Roger, Roger.
Well, I do have an empty lot behind my property, but the problem is it's owned by the city, so I don't think I want to run a, I could run a 180-meter halfway dipole across my property than that one, but I don't want to do that, yeah, because I don't want to get the city on me, you know what I mean?
Oh, Roger, Roger, yes, don't get the city upset, man. They'll make your life a living hell for sure. They have all the time in their world and all the money in their world to make your life difficult if you cross certain boundaries as far as the city is concerned. So that is one of those limiting factors that you have to deal with, but we all have to do the best we can. And like I say, if we had any decent conditions, you'd probably be giving me about an 8 or so, right?
Roger that. Yeah, you're consistently holding 10 dB over on me, so are you able to hear me good enough to give me any kind of audio critique?
No, not really. You are about that time, last transmission, about 2 dB above my noise level. Let me drop down to 100 watts and show you that we're down to like 100 watts now. So this is pretty much should be representative of what you're giving me. I will come up on a KW. Back to the KW. Roger, Roger.
Roger that. Yeah, you went down to about a 7 on the S meter, up to about 10 dB over. Yeah, I can see the. Well, I guess one thing I'd ask you, it's not too bassy, is it? Because I do know I've got a big peak in my voice around 100 hertz, and I've tried to notch that out, but you just don't know unless someone tells you.
Roger, you're listening to it, and now you don't want to notch it out. You want to roll it out. If you notch it out, you may have the opportunity of other lower frequencies coming back to haunt you. So you do want to roll off that bottom end. So I'm assuming you have a three position equalization situation, or two. Anyway, on the low frequency, I would drop that another couple of clicks. I would drop that 2 clicks from where you were on the bottom end. Roger, Roger.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this radio, well, it has a processor in it, and then it's got a parametric EQ that you would, well, you have 2 different EQs, really. You have one with the processor and one without. So the one good thing with this Yaesu, they have a piece of control software that you can actually go in and bring up the graph. So I guess notch is not really the right term. I guess I did roll it off because I am running 4K watt here. So yeah, I guess I probably didn't use the right term because I did go in there and roll that off. But yeah, I'll try to bring that down a couple more clicks and see how that does.
Roger, Roger. Now, you did fade up a little bit and fade down, but when you faded up, your signal is really nice. I mean, you've got good dynamic range. You know, it's a nice fast signal. You know, I would say just a click or 2 on the bottom end, roll off, you know, more, and see where that goes. But, you know, as it is, it sounds pretty good, Roger, Roger.
Yeah, and from what I understand, too, these hall microphones are pretty rich down on the bottom end, too, because I have used it to record some videos, audio on some videos that I do. I'm into genealogy, and I do some things with DNA, and yeah, I had to turn the bass down a little bit on. Yeah, it seems to be pretty rich down on that bottom end.
Roger, Roger. Now, some of his microphones have a built-in roll-off on the microphone itself. Does your mic have a roll-off filter?
No, it doesn't have any kind of filtering in it. It's just a straight dynamic microphone. But I heard you when you were talking to the man earlier, said you had a homebrew microphone. Now, I've heard of people doing homebrew radios and amps and tuners, but I think you're the first one I've heard that did a homebrew microphone.
Roger, Roger. Well, you know, I know what I'm looking for as far as the end product, and I know what I have to do to get there. So this condenser microphone is ELECTRET capsule microphone, but I have I'm looking for you know, a little warm upper end, you know, top end. So I have a little of my homebrew engineering. It's a little extension piece that goes in front of the element, and I call it my crisper. And what this does, it accentuates. It's like a little tube. I don't know if you know what a phono plug is, but the phono plug has a piece of plastic that fits over the phono plug, and it's round, and it's about 2 inches long. And I cut off the skinnier part, and I just use the tube part, which is like not quite half an inch, between 1/4 of an inch and 1/2 an inch, somewhere in there. And it just fits over the capsule front and elongates the front end of the microphone about 3/4 of an inch is all I use. And what that does, it shapes the audio going into the capsule by increasing the upper mids. And when you get to 10 kc, you have about, I would say a 7 dB boost over flat in that microphone output. And then, you know, that gives me a head start on where I'm going EQ-wise. And that goes into the ART preamp. And I do run the ART preamp. This is an MP3 Studio. And I do run the limiter switch on that. And so you have this the limiter on the ART preamp holds the excursion down to a more flat situation, so it just sounds brighter. And then from the output of the ART preamp, it goes into a third octave equalizer for further shaping. Roger?
Oh, okay, roger that. But I had, I looked at your QRZ page too, and I noticed it looks like you got this start doing little 5-watt station at the house. I kind of did the same thing when I was younger. I guess I got to start listening to shortwave, and then I did my own little station later. So, but I understood most of what you were saying, but yeah, I've been playing around with radio and audio gear most of my life, so I'm just not. I'm not as technical with the sound end of it as you are, but you know, you come out of phono plug, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about there. So, yeah, I have a turntable on all the records I've ever bought. I still have one. Actually, I even have an old 1926. Phonograph, the kind you crank up, mechanical type, so and it still works. It needs a little bit of work done on it, but it still works. So, yeah, I see you got your Qso-Vlog here, so yeah, that's pretty cool. But yeah, but when you were talking about here, I guess in your log about being with the 50-watt station, I guess that was an AM station, Roger?
I'm sorry, I missed part of that. Try that one more time about the wattage of the station.
Yeah, I know your QRZ page, you said you were like a director of a 50-watt station, so I'm assuming that was an AM radio station, right?
I think that's a 5-watt station. When I was 12, I was running, well, I'll tell you, there's a tube that means a great deal to me because it was my first AM transmitter tube. It's called a 117L7. You probably have never heard of that tube, and there's only one person that I've talked to in 50 years that actually knows what a 117L7 oscillator is, but it is a tube that the filaments are 117 volts. So there is no power transformer in this, but it is a tube in a box, a metal box with holes. You can see the tube filaments lighting. And the one I got had been owned by a military person, a technical military person that had made certain modifications to this 11707 oscillator to make it put out a bunch more power than theoretically what it should. And he had given it to my mother. She was secretary for a bunch of Air Force brass in MATS, which was called the Military Air Transport Service, and she had mentioned as a child, my abilities and interest, and so one of these guys brought this oscillator, homebrew, well, not a homebrew, but a commercially built wireless transmitter, 117L7 in, and said, gave it to her and said maybe he'd like this. There's just two things. First, operate it on a clear part on the band, so you don't get into trouble, interfering with other stations. And the other thing is always keep a good antenna on it, because it will burn up if you don't keep a good antenna getting the power that it generates out into the antenna. So on that latter point, I did make it a point to try to always have a good antenna tied to it, to the point of running a 300-foot long wire antenna out of a pine tree to the pump house. The pump house was my current location for my radio studio. It was small, but there was enough to have my radio console, which I built, which was through 4 amplifiers tied together, the audio tied together, to make a quasi mixer. and I think I was using a telephone microphone for the audio, which surprisingly 50 years later still sounds good because of the frequency response of the telephone element microphone that I was using. Just sounds so good even by today's standards. It just has a lot of cut and clarity to it that you wouldn't find with a regular microphone and audio system without that. So that was my childhood there, and that radio, when I run that 300-foot long wire antenna on it, I picked up probably another 4 or 5 miles. So that booger did get out maybe 6-7 miles. Roger?
Roger that. Yeah. I know the one I done was on FM, but hey, do you still have that transmitter?
No. No. And I was so surprised when I had a Qso with this other guy that mentioned that he once had a 11707 oscillator, I said, wow, it was like old home week, Roger.
Yeah, Roger that. Well, I'll have to ask my uncle if he's heard of that too, because he was a technician during the Vietnam War, when actually he still runs an electronic repair company today. Well, kind of, he's semi-retired, but he still shows up every day. But yeah, I never have really dealt with tubes, but yeah, he knows a lot about tubes. So I know. Now he's been redoing old jukeboxes for as long as I can remember. I mean, I know even when I was a little kid and go to his house, he'd always have old jukeboxes, and those all have tube audio amplifiers in them. So yeah, but I'll have to ask him if he knows anything about that tube. He may. He really doesn't get into radio, but yeah, he may have heard about it. Yeah, I'll go and see him. I'll have to ask him about it. I need to go see him anyway. I haven't gone and seen him in about a month. So, but yeah, I really haven't dealt with tubes really at all. So, but yeah, I just got my ham license back in 2011, but I didn't get on HS till last year, last March. Well, back in 2017. I started out with the AZ SU450. And now I got the 450, the 3000, and I got a portable 891. So I had to stop myself. I got into a buying boom there, but yeah, I had to throttle back. So anyway, I bought enough ham gear for a while. I need to stop.
Roger that. Well, conditions have changed quite a bit now, so let me say threes out of way. It's been a pleasure talking with you there, and I appreciate you dropping by. And we will be posting this Qso on YouTube within the next couple of days. So if you go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, that will bring up our Qso-Vlog page, and one of the Qsos will be marked My Group Air Check, dated 10/5/18, and the frequency 7189. Roger.
Next week, if I can. Yeah, I'll check that YouTube channel out. But hey, I enjoyed the Qso, and yeah, thanks for audio tape there. I'll bump that back a couple notches and see what that does. But yeah, it was interesting Qso, and yeah, maybe that other guy can get in. Got a little long-winded here, but all right, this is W7CSA to KC9VKV, 7.3s, and enjoyed it.
Roger. Threes up that way. You have a good day, and we'll catch you later. And this is a Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor, wrapping up our Qso-Vlog session for this morning. If there's anybody else that wants a quick air check, give me a shout.